Chapter 11. Later that evening, Brother Alf was patrolling his stretch of wall when he noticed a movement in the ferns at the edge of Mossflower Wood. Constance and Matthias were summoned hastily. They peered over the parapet. Brother Alf pointed to where he had seen the ferns moving. "Over there, to the right of that aspen. Look, they're moving again." Matthias had better nocturnal vision than either of his friends. He was the first to recognize the forlorn figure that rolled onto the grass.
"It's Ambrose Spike! He's hurt! Quick, let's get down there!" "Hold fast," Constance warned. "It may be a trap."
Matthias was loath to hang about while a creature was lying injured within his sight, but he had to heed his friend's advice. There just might be some of Clooney's rats lying in ambush for any creature that ventured into the shadowy fringes of Mossflower. However, Matthias was growing impatient.
"We can't leave poor Ambrose lying out there, Constance. He'll die. We've got to do something."
The badger sat down with her snout between her paws.
"Yes, we've got to think. Anyone got an idea?"
The two mice joined her. Hardly had Matthias sat down when he leaped up again.
"I've got it! Stay here. I'll be back in a tick."
Brother Alf watched the little figure flip-flopping off. He gave a sigh and shook his head. "What do you suppose our Matthias is up to?" The badger smiled affectionately. More and more, she was coming to trust Matthias's natural skill as a leader and tactician.
"Don't fret, Brother Alf. Whatever it is, you can bet your habit it'll be an original Matthias Jim. The young mouse has got more in his head than a pile of acorns."
Brother Alf looked out at the still form in the grass. "It may be too late. Ambrose isn't even twitching. Look, he's not rolled up in a ball anymore." Further speculation was curtailed by the appearance of Matthias. With him were half a dozen moles. Their leader glanced out at the hedgehog. He scratched some hasty calculations on the wall with his claw, then turned to Matthias.
I think we can get you on edge, pigback, sir. You can get us out in the gate and stand watch."
Turning to his team, the formal, for that was his official title, began discussing tunnel width coupled with reverse prickle drag, forward traction, and all the other specialist details that are routine to the average qualified tunnel mole. Matthias whispered to Constance and Brother Alf.
"Formal and his crew are first class at rescue work. They've often rescued burrowers from cave-in. All we have to do is stand guard by the southeast wicket gate until they're safely back. Right, what are we waiting for? Let's go,"
said the badger. Silently, they slid outside the small green painted iron door, Matthias straining his eyes anxiously to see if there were any signs of life in the hedgehog. He lay still about 150 mouse paces from where they stood. The moles unraveled a rope sling. Four moles stood watching as two of his team started the dig. Matthias looked on in wonderment. 1 minute, they were above ground. A moment later, there was a veritable shower of loam and topsoil as they vanished beneath the earth. Nature's own technicians. In a trice, they were back, moist snouts poking from the excavation. They made their ground report to Formal.
Him be nice and soft, sir. Bain't no rock nor root to stopping us. Straight for him, we're not thinking."
Satisfied, Formal moved towards the test hole with the rest of his team.
"I'll dig ahead. You men widen in workings. Gaffer and Marge, follow up a shoring."
He tugged his snout respectfully to Matthias and Constance.
"You gentlebees bide by here till us back."
Another quick shower of soft, dark earth, and the moles were lost to view beneath the ground surface. Constance sniffed the breeze as Matthias turned his ears to the nighttime woodland sounds. They watched the ground humping into a continuous hillock that progressed further as the moles tunneled towards Ambrose Spike. The night remained calm and still, but Matthias and Constance stayed alert, both knowing if they failed to observe the rudimentary laws of nature, the penalty could be fatal. Matthias did a little shuffle of excitement.
"Look! They've come up right under poor old Ambrose. My word, What splendid moles! Good heavens! He's vanished completely! They must have him inside the tunnel.
In a surprisingly short time, the tunnelers were back. Emerging from the hole, they carried the hedgehog and the rope sling across their backs, refusing any help from the badger or the mouse. Formal merely tugged his nose.
Nay, nay, you'ns are getting your paws dirted.
As swiftly as possible, Ambrose was hurried to the Abbey infirmary and sickbay. He was attended by the abbot himself. A hasty diagnosis revealed that the hedgehog was suffering from a long, jagged wound that ran from the back of his ear to the tip of his paw. Brother Alf nodded sympathetically. That's probably what caused old Ambrose to pass out. Pain and loss of blood. He must have traveled a fair way in that condition. Do you think he'll live, Father Abbot? The abbot chuckled quietly. He cleaned the long, ugly wound and applied a poultice of herbs. No cause for alarm, Brother Alf. Ambrose Spike is made of leather and needles. Tough as a boulder, this old ruffian is. Look, he's beginning to come around already. Sure enough, after some peculiar grunts and much curling and uncurling, the hedgehog opened his eyes and looked about.
Ah, my aching ear! Father Abbot, you wouldn't see a poor son of the Spike suffering like this without a drop of last October's nut brown ale to wet his parched gullet,
he pleaded. All of the creatures laughed aloud with delight and relief at seeing their old friend alive and well once again. Matthias was astonished at the amount of nut brown ale that Ambrose supped before he deemed himself fit enough to make a report. The hedgehog smacked his lips noisily.
Ah, that's better. Now, let me see. I did as you asked me, gave as many creatures fair warning as I could. The Joseph Bell helped a great deal to warn everyone. Well, to cut a long story short, it must have been near noon when I stopped at Vole Bank. I told the Voles the bad news, and blow me if that little ninny Colin Vole didn't go to shrieking and screaming all over the place as to how they'd all be murdered in their beds. Believe me, there was no way of silencing the daft young thing. Anyhow, his noise must have alerted a pack of those rats who were out foraging. Before you could say knife, they were upon us. There was such a gang of them that I couldn't do anything. I had to curl up. They carried off young Colin and his mum and his dad. But try as they would, there was no laying claws on Ambrose Spike, no sir. Then one of them had a go at me with the point of an iron churchyard railing. Stabbed away at me, the devil did. They reckoned I was dead. Said I was too spiky to eat, so they dragged the Vole family off, and I lay still until the coast was clear. I made it as far as Mossflower, and that's all I can remember. Is there any more left in that jug? This one's giving me jip. I need ale for medicinal purposes, Father Abbot.
Matthias groaned and hung his head in despair. The Vole family taken captive. Death or slavery was all that the wretched creatures could look forward to. Emboldened by the rescue of the hedgehog, Matthias was about to suggest that he and Constance, together with some hand-picked helpers, ventured to undertake a rescue mission to St. Ninian's Church. It was as if the abbot and Constance both read his thoughts at the same time. Abbot Mortimer sighed and shook his head at Matthias. The badger was more voluble.
Matthias, forget it. Abandon any hopes you have of snatching the Vole family from under Clooney's nose. Imagine it. A few of us going up against several hundred armed rats in their own camp. Ridiculous. A fat lot of good we'd be as defenders of Redwall, with our heads fixed to Clooney's standard. Matthias, you're a very brave young mouse, so please try to set an example to the rest by not becoming a foolish or dead one.
On reflection, Matthias could see the wisdom of the badger's counsel. Long after they had all retired for the night, he sat up thinking. 100 mad ideas pounded through his brain, each one wilder than the last. Feeling at a loss, he wandered up into Great Hall and stood in front of the tapestry. Without consciously realizing it, he found himself talking to Martin the warrior.
Oh, Martin, what would you have done in my place? I know that I'm only a young mouse, a novice, not even a proper Redwall member yet. But once, you were young too. I know what you would have done. You'd have buckled on your armor, picked up your mighty sword, gone down to that church and battled with the rats until they released the voles, or perished beneath your blade. But, alas, those days are gone. I have no magic sword to aid me, only the advice of my elders and betters, in which I must listen.
Matthias sat down upon the cool stone floor. He gazed longingly up at Martin the warrior. So proud, so brave. What a dashing figure he cut. Looking back down to himself in his baggy green robes and oversized sandals, Matthias felt hot tears of shame and frustration spilling from his eyes and dripping on his young whiskers. Unable to stop himself, he wept freely. The soft touch of a gentle paw on his back caused him to look around. It was Cornflower. Matthias wished he were dead. He quickly turned his face away, knowing she could see his tears.
Cornflower, please go away,
Matthias sobbed. The little field mouse, however, would not go. She sat down on the floor next to Matthias. Taking the edge of her pinafore, she softly wiped away his tears. For such a shy little mouse, she had quite a bit to say.
Matthias, don't be ashamed. I know why you cry and grieve. It is because you are kind and good, not a hard-hearted, pitiless rat like Clooney. Please, listen to me. Even the strongest and bravest must sometimes weep. It shows that they have a great heart, one that can feel compassion for others. You are brave, Matthias. Already, you have done great things for one so young. I am only a simple country-bred field mouse, but even I can see the courage and leadership in you. A burning brand shows the way, and each day your flame grows brighter. There is none like you, Matthias. You have the sign of greatness upon you. One day, Redwall and all the land will be indebted to you. Matthias, you are a true warrior.
Matthias, with his eyes dry and his head held high, stood up. He felt himself stand taller than he ever had. He helped Cornflower to her feet and bowed to her.
Cornflower, how can I ever thank you for what you have said? You, too, are a very special mouse. It is late now. Go and get some rest. I think I will stay here a little while longer.
The field mouse untied her headband. It was her favorite one, pale yellow bordered with the cornflowers after which she was named. She tied it to Matthias's arm, the right one, just above the elbow. A maiden's colors for her champion warrior. Silently, she crept off. Matthias could feel his heart beating against his chest. He spoke to the image of Martin.
Thank you, warrior. You spoke to me through Cornflower. You gave me the sign that I asked of you.